Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day you're watching this. Thank you once again for joining me. I was going to say enjoying me, but I'm not sure that's the right thing to say. You might do. Hey, you're here. I do get some lovely comments, which are absolutely brilliant, and I really appreciate those. So what I'm going to do at the beginning of today's video, because I always forget until the end, is if you do like what I'm doing, please like and subscribe. That would be bloody marvellous. Most of people that watch our videos are non-subscribers, something like over 80%. I think it's 83% are non-subscribers and 17% are subscribers. So it doesn't cost anything, which is a bit of a surprise in this day and age that you can get something relatively for free. This is not an advice channel, but as a building surveyor who absolutely loves what I do, I'm just trying to share a little bit of knowledge, particularly to students out there or people learning to get on their way in residential surveying, commercial surveying, building surveying, that kind of work. So I hope you do. I hope you do like what we do. But please do like and subscribe. That'd be brilliant. Right, get that out of the way with. A couple of years ago, this video is, would you believe, about 18 months, 2 years in the making. I've been meaning to do it, but I've got pretty much a week in the office this week. This is the last week in October 2025. I'm out all day tomorrow, which will be Wednesday. But I'm in the office the rest of the week. So I thought, right, we'll get it done. So it's about 7 o'clock in the morning, I think now. Before Charlie or Sarah get here, I'll just make a start. So what it is, a couple of years ago, we did some spray foam inspections for a company. We did about, overall, I think we did about 230 roof space inspections for spray foam. Brilliant instruction, really enjoyed it, mostly over the south of England. Substantial amount were down Paul, Bournemouth, Southampton way. As we were 3 or 4 months into that, the company said to us, "Oh, do you know anything about wall coatings?" Okay, what kind of wall coatings? So they gave us some product literature and said that the lender that they were acting for is running into difficulties where people are complaining about these wall coatings. So we started saying, yes, no problem at all. We can help. So after a quite prolonged couple of months of back and forth of deciding what we wanted to, what they wanted us to look at and what was to be included in the report. They can't obviously influence our opinion, but if they want us to report X, Y, and Z, we're not going to go out and report on A, B, and C. So that took a couple of months to sort out. And they said, right, we've got about 40 for you to look at. Fantastic, bloody marvellous. End up being over 500. I think we looked at about 520, 530 wall coatings for properties. Substantial amount in and around South London, again down Paul, Dorset kind of way, Southampton and that. And then into South Wales, I think we did some up north, Northampton, Peterborough kind of way as well. It's not really up north, is it? I don't want to offend anyone. So I'm going to look at my crib sheet because I wrote this a couple of years ago, February 24. So that was 18 months ago, wasn't it, when I wrote this? So it's just to kind of take you through what issues we found with these wall coatings, where they're good and where they're bad. So let's make a start. And it really comes down to the sales pitch again. These people, I'll say these people, they're obviously not very nice people, but most of the clients we've been to were elderly, didn't need or want the product, had no desire for the product, but someone has forcibly sold this product at the door. And we were told several times, as myself and 4 other surveyors doing this at the time, 3 other surveyors, sorry, doing this at the time, that they were in the house for 3 or 4 hours sometimes, pressure selling. It's £20,000. It's a bargain at £20,000. You can't get any cheaper than £20,000. And eventually they come down and signed at £8,000 or something like that. But I'll look at costs in a minute as to what kind of what kind of cost was being charged for some of these properties. Because sometimes there is no value. It's actually a negative value because this stuff needs to come off the wall, just like the spray foam needs to come out of the lofts. So the sales pitch was forcible. And they will quite often say all these different things about what he did. So I'm going to get some photos up at the same time here. So it doesn't fade. It doesn't need recolouring. It doesn't need redecorating and it doesn't discolour. Well, look at these photos here. This is of an install that's 4 or 5 years old, completely discoloured and now needs nothing but redecoration. I'll come on to solid walls, cavity walls in a bit because some were absolutely fine. You know, there were some that didn't need anything at all. We were asked to look at all of them. Some of them were absolutely fine. Some of them discoloured, so it needs regular redecoration. It doesn't need recoating for 25 years. In fact, it comes with a 25-year guarantee. Absolute BS once again. It's unbelievable the manner in which these things are sold. It came with a 5-year guarantee. And if, sorry, no, I tell a lie. It came with a 10-year guarantee. And if you wanted another 5 years, that's going to cost you £600. If you wanted another 10 years, it will cost you another £2,000 or whatever. So they could extend the guarantee again and again and again up to 25 years. But I think the standard was 5-year guarantee. And even their guarantee had a big red bar at the top with yellow writing 25-year guarantee. This guarantee is for 10 years. If you want to extend, blah, blah, blah. Extended warranties, who could lose? It stops damp. If you've got a damp issue in your house, this will resolve it. It's absolute crap. If you've got a damp issue, you need to resolve the damp issue, not put some coating over the top to sort it out. And look at these two properties here. Look, this is one down in Kent. The guy had horrendous damp issues. This property had lime render, and I determined it was lime render because he said people used to sit outside his wall and just pick away at the render because it was so soft. So it must have been lime. Is the kind of age for it. They said it was failed. It all needs to come off. So they've re-rendered his entire house with a cement render, and then put this moisture vapor impermeable coating over the top. So it's now put a plastic jacket around a house that needed to breathe. Okay, you put a plastic mac on and go do your daily activities. You're going to sweat like anything on the inside. It's exactly the same for buildings. Buildings don't produce moisture. They need to manage moisture. It's the occupants that produce the moisture. And the house couldn't manage it anymore. And this one in Wales as well. Issues with damp after the coating was put on. Slightly different coating because this was external wall insulation. And I do need to do a video about that as well. It's breathable. This stuff is breathable. It's a wonderful product. It's breathable. It's waterproof and it's breathable. And it's breathable. Well, look at these couple of photos here. This is a breathable coating. So what's happening is the moisture's getting through the coating as it would do around gaps and joints and that kind of thing. Or if there's any movement in the building where water can get in, that water then's trying to escape out and it's trying to get out the brick joints. It can't do because you've got this moisture vapor impermeable coating on the outside. So as this photo here shows, it's just pushing away where it's poorly bonded to the lime mortar, because actually in their details it does say it's not suitable for lime render. Well, why can you go over lime mortar with it then? So loads of contradiction issues with it, which we got into. So another couple of examples. This property was coated to the rear only. It's yellow at high level because there's a quirky kind of flying freehold there. But you can see around the back of that hopper, it's all peeling away, and here on the rear addition, it's all peeling away, very clearly peeling away. So there's been very little preparation work. It's just completely not suitable. So any moisture trying to get out of these walls and here above this pretty poor quality flat roof, it's just pushing off the brickwork. Again, a low level below damp proof course. We would expect the walls to be particularly wet below damp proof course, but regardless, it's just sprayed everywhere. Some of it's okay, but just on this particular house, as with others, it's just failing. It's either very clearly failed or there's areas where it's just starting to go, as we saw back there. This homeowner had horrendous damp issues inside his property, mainly on the flank wall. Typical Victorian property, late 1880s, 1890s, that kind of era. And really high damp readings. We had plaster failing everywhere and quite a bit of mould growth. The reason being, they re-rendered his wall with cement render and then placed this coating over the top of it. So any moisture getting in, you can see the cracks. Moisture's getting in through those cracks, just had no way out, so it's just penetrated straight into the property. It stops cracking. Who knew that paint could stop cracking of a building? Well, clearly nobody, because it doesn't. It's paint, but it was another sales thing. It keeps the house cool in the winter. It keeps the house cool in the summer and warm in the winter. Feed your dog while you're on holiday. You know, it's absolute rubbish. So my general response is to these: it doesn't discolour or fade. Well, it may do, because most painting coats would do. It doesn't need recoating for 25 years. It's a paint. It's going to need recoating. Regardless of what you call it, how you dress it up, it's a paint. It's going to need recoating. It stops damp. No, it doesn't. Absolutely no, it doesn't. It's breathable. Their own details say that it's applied in 2 600 micron layers. Well, 0.1 of a micron, no, 1 micron is 1/1000th of a millimetre. So 2 layers is 1200 microns. That's 1.2 millimetres thick of plastic paint. Poly, whatever it's called. Oh, there's no way that is breathable. And well, evidence shows that it's not breathable because of the issues we've had. It keeps the house warm in the summer, cool in the winter. It's paint. No, it doesn't. It stops cracking. It's paint. No, it doesn't. So lots of issues that we needed to resolve. Now, whereas our spray foam instruction was quite straightforward, because you had this horrible stuff in loft spaces, doesn't belong up there. You've got to heat the loft space for the insulation to become effective, i.e. because insulation is only effective if you've got hot on one side, cooler on the other, or vice versa. This was different because it's going to depend on the exposure and the location of the property. It's going to depend on the construction of the property and how the building's being put together. Because we are coming across, with our range of properties over just the last 150 years, you've got lime solid brick walls, you've got cement solid brick walls, you've got lime cavity walls, doesn't really matter, or cement cavity walls. Some may be rendered with lime, rendered with cement. There's such a variable to look at. So each inspection was completely on its own. So let's look at some of the bits and pieces with regards to costs. This gable wall here, this is £11,500 to coat this, and this will come down from about 30 odd thousand. This gable wall, £10,500. This whole house, £26,000 to put this coating on this house. And this front elevation only is £4,500. So I've looked at the manufacturer's recommendations. They state the wall should be dry when the product's applied. It's paint, it's outside, of course the wall's got to be dry. But they go on to specify that the relative humidity should be less than 75%, and temperatures during the application and for 6 hours afterwards should be over 20 degrees Celsius. We looked at so many that were done in February, March, April kind of time. We're lucky to get that kind of prolonged period of temperature for July and August, or June and July perhaps, in this country. So the fact that this was applied, January, November, it's absolute rubbish. And it's hardly a surprise that so many of these have failed. But clever sales, they get their money because they get people to take out finance on it. So they do it, they do 1,000 of these, pack up business, and they're gone. It's someone else's problem. We've also looked at some of that clear coatings on, and this property here was in South London, and it looks like the bricks are peeling. And as I've said to people in the past, I had one of these salesmen arrive at my door many years ago, probably looking at early 2000s or so. And so he's done all his sales spiel. He throws a glass of water over the wall. Look, it's soaking up the water. It shouldn't do that. It should run off. And okay, that's interesting. So what do you do then? I'm a chartered building surveyor, and the guy just turned around and walked off. So it's absolute proof it's a load of rubbish. So it doesn't fade or discolour. Well, look at these photos here. This is complete discolouring of the product. I don't really have a major issue with this because it's paint after all. It's been completely missold, but at the end of the day, it is paint. And paint will discolour, it will fade, and it will need recoating. So, you get what you pay for, but it's just part of the sales BS that goes with all this, unfortunately. A lot of the properties were repointed. And what they've done is they've taken out lime mortar pointing and repointed with cement. And if you look at my other video on cement v lime, it gives quite a good description as to why that is a really bad idea and can create issues. And we've seen in some properties where brick faces are starting to spoil already because of this. This property, as I said about earlier, in Kent, the whole house was re-rendered, and horrendous issues inside the building now because of damp. This isn't penetrating damp, this is by and large condensation damage from the inside, where those walls used to effectively breathe. I know some people don't like the term breathing, but it's a process of moisture vapor transfer through the walls, enabling that moisture to escape the building naturally, as it will do. Any rain that soaks in the building will escape naturally. You then take that lime render off, you put a cement coating on the wall and this plastic paint, then you're going to have issues. What we also found a lot of these properties, a bit difficult to see in some of the photos unless it's failing, is they'd actually wash the wall with a cement slurry first. That's even creating more of an issue. Some of our instructions were external wall insulation. Now, I'm not going to go into this too much because there's a lot of issues with external wall insulation. But here we can see how it's been poorly applied. It looks lovely from the outside. They're really happy with it, but couldn't understand why they're getting condensation issues on the inside. Well, the problem there is you've insulated the wall. You put 80 mil of PIR, polyisocyanurate, Celotex, Kingspan, whatever. You wrap the house in that, absolutely fine, as long as it's not a solid wall, which you can have issues with. But they take it up to the underside of the soffit. Now, the underside of the soffit might be 300 millimeters below your ceiling level inside. So you've got this lovely warm insulated wall, except the band around the top, which is uninsulated. So that's going to be a condensation sink. That's where you're going to have issues. So two of the reasons why this was an issue on some properties and wasn't an issue on other properties was how the buildings are built. Pretty much either cavity or solid. So I'm just going to look at those now. So if we look at a normal cavity wall, for example, we've got the outer skin of brickwork, cavity, and then inner skin of blockwork and plaster, I for inside, O for outside. If any rain hits this outer skin, it will soak through and then run down the inside of the cavity and out through weep vents. That's completely normal, and that's how a cavity wall should work. So if we then think about our coatings, and that is put onto the outside of the wall, either let's just assume it's one of these wall coatings for now. So we now got our coating on the outside of the wall. What that's effectively going to do is most rain is now going to hit and run off. Where we get bits of movement and there's cracks or gaps around windows, water is still potentially going to come through, but it'll still run down the inside of the cavity as it should do. So on walls of cavity construction, this is not really an issue. This is what these wall coatings were designed for. So the issue then becomes mainly with our historic building stock, our Victorian properties, anything really up to certainly the 20s, and in some circumstances up to the 50s or so when solid walls were still being constructed. So we've got our traditional solid wall, inside plastered. This would be, say, Flemish bond. So from the outside, you would see a stretcher, a header, a stretcher, a header, a stretcher, a header, and they would alternate, which is Flemish bond. You'd see on virtually any Victorian building in the country. External walls perform slightly differently when it comes to rain. I did do a video on external walls. So rain hits the outer wall and it soaks into the outer third to a half or so of the wall, depending on location, exposure, how much rainfall we've had. And then moisture vapor transfer, the moisture evaporates out these soft lime joints, enabling the wall to dry out. And all is well in the world. So that will need to be repointed. This moisture pointing is sacrificial, so it needs to be repointed every, I don't know, 20, 30 years or so, depending on the exposure of the property. Right, just tidy that up a bit. So our issue comes about when someone comes along, I shan't use any bad terms, but when someone comes along and puts a coating on the outside of the wall. And it could be render, it doesn't matter if it's lime render, but if it's a cement render, that's an issue. And some of the examples I'll go through show cement render problems. Or it could be one of these so-called breathable textured wall coatings. Now, as with our cavity wall, a lot of the water now is going to run off the wall. Not going to be a problem. But old buildings move, and I'd say a building that's of solid brick construction with lime mortar joints is probably going to move a little bit more. But again, that's mainly going to be where it's based. Is it on clay soil? Is there trees nearby? Do we get seasonal movement where the ground's going to swell slightly in the winter and shrink back slightly in the summer? All buildings move. So when they move and you've got an impervious coating like this or cement render on the wall, it's going to crack, which means water is going to get in through these cracks, either through a crack directly in the coating or the render or around windows or where there's been some historic building movement issues. That moisture is going to try initially to come back out, but it can't because this coating is moisture vapor impermeable. At 1.2 millimeters thick, 1200 microns, which the manufacturers state it is, there's no way that's breathable. Absolute joke to even suggest it is. So what happens then, moisture can't get out, so it comes in. And now we've got a damp issue inside the property. This is why this stuff is not designed for solid walls. Cavity walls can be absolutely fine. Solid walls is an absolute no-no. So before this gets too long-winded and boring, there was a lot of effort that went into this. It was a good instruction for us because you're looking at so many different property types. And most of those people, in fact, virtually all of those people, I don't know anybody who said, oh, we knew it wasn't very good. You might get him or her trying to, oh, I told you it was no good. And that's going to happen with anything. But these people bought this product other than the fact it was very, very pressure sold, believing they were doing the right thing. Exactly the same as spray foams. We were told you this, that and the other, government grants, this, that and the other, which is an absolute load of rubbish. We are going to kind of walking into it with our eyes wide open at the moment, I think, with retrofit. And any time you see there's a government grant available, personally walk away, because there's so many scummy people involved in selling it just to make a quick buck. And suddenly when I mean a quick buck, you know, I know the trading standards are after one or two of these people that we've had involvement with, and they're millionaires through screwing people over, which is completely unacceptable. So I've referenced before how this stuff was missold, and this is a good example of it. Lovely row of early Victorian terrace houses somewhere down the West Country, I can't remember. We looked at quite a few. And all the houses are dressed stone with decorative infill stonework as well, solid walls. This one house has been coated, and they sprayed this horrible textured coating all over the dressed stone quoins and the face stonework in between. And it's failing left, right and centre. So there we got some failure at low level, lots of failure at low level, either pitting of it or where it's actually peeling away from the walls. The seals have all been done. That is very rough textured paint, so it's not going to have the runoff as a normal paint coating would, which means that it's going to harbour all the lichen and the crap that you're going to get runoff of a property. Here we go, evidence that it stops cracking quite clearly, and more peeling and failure of the coating at low level here, just below damp proof course level. So we did, was it 520, 530 or so inspections all over the southeast. A bit like our loft insulation spray foam, it's just not required. If your house needs redecorating, redecorate it. Use paint that is like a Sandtex or whatever if you've got a cavity wall that is for that purpose. You do not need any specialist coatings. That most certainly isn't going to stop damp. It isn't going to stop any structural movement. It isn't breathable. It is going to discolour. It is going to fade. It is going to need redecoration within 25 years. It is not going to keep your house cool in the winter, summer. And it is definitely not going to keep your house warm in the winter. And the 25-year guarantee is an absolute joke as well. So, a little bit of background. You may, as surveyors, I know we certainly have in the past. Oh, one thing I've not showed you the product. Look at this, look. This has been kicking about in my van for a while. When I say a while, probably over a year or so. But this is a bit of coating, and it is incredibly thick. Here's a slightly bigger bit. So we're looking at about, this is probably about 1 millimetre thick. As I said, it goes, they say it's sprayed in 2 coats of 600 microns, but it's never going to be that perfect. And this was just falling off a property. There we go. Okay, so yeah, it just goes to show there's just something else there to trip up surveyors when they're out looking at properties. It's unfortunate, but it's the homeowners I feel for. They've spent thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, thinking they're doing the right thing for their property because someone's convinced them at the doorstep that this needs to be done, and it's an absolute waste of time and money. I think with what we've seen over the last few years, particularly with this and spray foams and stuff and solar and resin drives, don't buy anything from the doorstep. Please, please, please. Just speak to someone. You know, if you call a local surveyor and he charges you 150 quid for an hour's consultation, that might be the best £150 you ever spend. It seems expensive, but there's nothing more expensive than cheap advice. And if you're signing someone up to do something that's, you know, at the doorstep, it's no wonder so many people have issues, but they're not to know, which is a bit of a shame. Okay, so enough of me wattling on. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've got something out of that. Maybe if you're a student and you're learning. We're all students, we're all still learning. I'm late my late 40s now, 50. Every day is still a school day. I read a lot. I'm into reading court judgments at the moment, like you do. Just reading one on a poor old surveyor chap that was sued hundreds of thousands of pounds after doing a survey. So yeah, please like and subscribe, and I shall catch you on the next one.